I chose for my reflection Exodus chapter 4, verses 10 through 17. Moses, however, said to the Lord, "If you please, my Lord, I have never been eloquent, neither in the past, nor now that you have spoken to your servant, but I am slow of speech and tongue." The Lord said to him, "Who gives one person speech? Who makes another mute or deaf, seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, I will assist you in speaking, and teach you what you are to say." But he said, "If you please, my Lord, send someone else." Then the Lord became angry with Moses and said, "I know there is your brother Aaron, the Levite, who is a good speaker. Even now he is on his way to meet you. When he sees you, he will truly be glad. You will speak to him and put the words in his mouth. I will assist both you and him in speaking, and teach you both what you are to do. He will speak to the people for you. He will be your spokesman, and you will be as God to him. Take this staff in your hand. With it you are to perform the signs." I didn't get to watch much of the Super Bowl this weekend. I wasn't purposefully avoiding it. Just a few other things were going on, and it kept me from watching much of the game. I didn't really have a rooting interest either, which didn't help. So, Monday morning, I did what any one of us would now do in this situation. I went to social media to find out what happened. It occurred to me that it was odd that that's where I went. I didn't seek out factual accounts about how the game was played. I went to sites where it's expected that people would post their opinions about the game, about the halftime show, and about the commercials. And opinions there were, about all of it. Mostly about the halftime show. Or shows, as it were. At first, what I thought was, it's odd that people have become so willing to share their opinions about these things. But I am old enough to remember life before social media, and people shared their opinions to anyone who would listen about anything. I started thinking then about what people were sharing. Even my feed, which I am sure is relatively tame compared to the world's, there were some strong opinions going in several directions about all of it. There are people who, of course, would post anonymously, but for the most part, these are posts to which there was attached a name, meaning that a person was willing to stake their name, their reputation on what they were saying. Maybe they shouldn't have, but they did. About a football game, about entertainers, about marketing pitches. And what did I do? I don't post much on social media for a variety of reasons, but when I got home on Monday, one of the first things that my wife and I talked about were everyone's comments that we heard or saw and our opinions about them. We all want our opinions to be known, and we're not afraid of giving them, even if they might be controversial or strong. It occurred to me, though, that there's not nearly as many people willing to do that about God, about Jesus, or about the gospel. Sure, my feed is full of Catholics and Christians, but outside the little bubble that I've created, it's not the norm to be talking about Christ. Why is that? Why are we so willing to talk about some things, but not God? I think sometimes we fear the response. I'm afraid people will get angry. Or it's not the right setting. And certainly is a time and place for everything. But I also think a large part of the time it's fear of saying the wrong things about God. Or we think it's not our role. Or we think somebody else could say it better than us. We are, in a sense, Moses. God placed Moses in the position that he was in, at the time of history that he was in, before a people who needed him, and who were looking to him as a leader, before Pharaoh, who was persecuting his people. God chose Moses for this. God even told Moses all of this. And what's his response? "Send someone else, Lord. I'm not so good with public speaking. I might say the wrong thing. He might not listen to me." These are very human responses. I think that I might have the same responses if I were in that position. So I can't say I blame Moses. But at the same time, do we think God didn't know that Moses wasn't the greatest orator? Do we think that God didn't know what he was doing when he chose Moses for this role? Do we think that it was happenstance that Aaron was on his way to Moses at that time and could help Moses with this very problem? There's a lesson here for us, I think. God calls each of us. There are big calls, marriage or religious life, the priesthood, a career, and the like, but there are also smaller calls. To be a witness to him in this or that conversation, to talk about him to someone who needs it, to be willing to share our faith with others. It is as important that we respond to these little calls as it is to the big ones. And it's as important that we trust that we can respond to those calls. If we're in a conversation and someone is just bashing Catholicism, if we feel that urge to say something, it might be God asking us to speak for him. Next week Lent begins. If we're out with friends and we're the only one not eating meat and someone asks why, it might be God calling us to talk about him. If a friend is relaying a tough situation he's going through and we feel the need to pray, it might be God saying, this person needs this right now. I want you to provide it. These are not easy calls, just as marriage or religious life or the priesthood are not easy calls. And we might feel ill-equipped to do what needs to be done in the moment. But we should trust that God put us there in that moment, with that opportunity, with the knowledge and the faith that we have to speak for him. And we should look for the Aarons in that situation. Not somebody to speak so that we don't have to, but the ways that God is helping us to realize our call in that moment, and the ways that he is making our response possible. God has equipped each of us to speak for him in these ways. Not necessarily all day, every day, not necessarily in every conversation, not necessarily in every situation, but he's calling us to witness for him. We need to recognize those calls, trust that he has equipped us to respond, and to be bold in speaking for him.